meeting is being recorded.
Or your computer will be recorded. All right. Oh, it's short. All right. Test. Okay, good. I call to order the Highland Park Board of Education hybrid workshop voting meeting. It's Monday, January 22nd, 2024, 5:45 p.m. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, location to be submitted to the for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. May I roll call?
Dr. Beatty,
Here.
Ms. Casal Dunn,
Here.
Dr. Coleman, Dr. Pickley,
Here.
Ms. Pruce,
Here.
Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Stanio,
Here.
Ms. Vardaman,
Here.
Ms. Voorhees.
Here. We are going to recess to executive session. Be it resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10:4-4 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss a personnel settlement, discuss matters related to HIB discipline, and a meeting with the Board of Education's attorney. These exemptions are permitted to be disclosed or permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10:4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. I move that we recess to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to stand for pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We had several communications since our last meeting. As listed, Alananda with lunch quality concerns, Angela Highland, fair compensation for professionals, and with a normal evacuation, Rob Scott and Eric O'Brien, Elizabeth Greenberg, all about the incident that occurred at the middle school and high school. David Copperman from news items, and Rebecca Hirsch regarding start times and Bartle. I move that we approve the following minutes: the hybrid regular public meeting and executive session of December 18th, 2023, and the hybrid regular reorganization public meeting, January 2nd, 2024. I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Dr. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Casal Dunn,
Yes.
Dr. Coleman,
Yes.
Dr. Pickley,
Yes.
Ms. Pruce,
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman, Ms. Stanio,
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes. Okay, we'll have our student representative report.
Is the mic working all right?
Just as
Okay,
close
cool.
as you can. Get close.
Oh. Use the theater. Yeah, I'm using the theater.
I got
Okay. So, starting with Irving, as usual. The first school family meeting of the new year focused on the efforts and determination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. while also coming together as a whole school, which is very nice. Irving is also looking forward to having another full-day global play day on February 7th and their math night the next day on February 8th. Information will be coming on both events soon, so keep your inboxes open. Over at Bartle, the epic EPI skate, there's dots in between, so I'm assuming it stands for something. Game night was held on January 18th, and great fun was had by all the families that attended. Also, it's important to note that January 31st will be Bartle's STEM night from 5 to 7:15 p.m. If your child is interested in science, technology, engineering, or math, consider attending. Middle school time, okay. The middle school wants to extend their thanks to the staff and students for their exceptional conduct and cooperation during the evacuation. Direct quote here, "Without your help and patience, it would not have been as seamless as it was. Thank you so much." The middle school is also excited to be rolling out the use of Smart Pass, a new electronic pass system for the middle school. Students can use their Chromebooks to submit a request, and in turn, teachers can instantly approve or decline as needed. Upon creating the pass and getting the appropriate approval, students will turn their devices out toward the teacher. A timer will begin, and students will have to return to class within the allotted time frame. These details will be reviewed with students at the end of the month, and a grace period will be put in place for the students to have time to learn and adjust to this new system. Finally, for middle school, the next Students Speak Up meeting will be held tomorrow, January 23rd, after school in the middle school cafeteria. Okay, high school time. The high school would like to say that they are, quote again, very proud of our students and staff for the cooperation shown at the evacuation and reunification drill on Wednesday, evacuation and reunification on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. Although this incident was not a drill, everyone conducted themselves wonderfully and cooperatively. Thank you for those kind words, it was very unsettling. The district's cafeteria service, Pumptonian, published their first ever newsletter, which details upcoming specials and other current news. They encourage all parents, students, and teachers to take a look. Finally, on January 11th, 2024, the Highland Park High School Robotics Club held an outreach event at Urban, where kindergarten and first grade students were able to engage in the design and engineering process. The students learned about tension through a collaborative team activity and through building tension quads. The high school robotics team demonstrated their competitive robot and showed how their robot's task relies on tension, helping the students see a real-life application of the skills they just learned. The Irving students were able to engage in hands-on activities and learn about the engineering and design process in a fun and engaging way. The Robotics Club hopes to inspire young learners interested in STEM through projects like these and more. Finally, HP DECA attended their regional competition on January 4th and had 19 students qualify on a problem-solving exercise to go on to the next round at the state competition in Atlantic City in the month of March. Woo! And that's all for the report.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Mike. Okay, we will move on to our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I have just one, well, it's not hopefully quick, I'll try to make it quick. I have a couple comments that I want to make on two recent events, and then I'll toss the mic over to Mr. Lassiter, who's with us on Zoom. Well, I'll put you up on the screen in just 1 second, Mr. Lassiter, and then we can do our student spotlight. So two things, so just bear with me as I get my notes here. The first is I wanted to address an article that was published by New Jersey 101.5 entitled The Top 5 Violent Middle Schools in New Jersey. Highland Park was on there as number 2. The data from the report was data from 2021 to 2022. When I looked at that, I reviewed the data because it is definitely alarming, as I don't feel that the middle school is really that unsafe. I feel like that if it was really that unsafe, we would have, known about it. And that I frequent the schools very often. Our schools are definitely not unsafe. So it was very alarming. So I reviewed the data that was believed to be the source of the information that they used, and we did in fact have that number of reported violent incidences. However, according to what we have to report under the categories, so there's several categories that go into a report from the New Jersey Department of Education, including violence, vandalism, substances, weapons, HIV, and other incidents leading to removal. Under violence, the types are assault, fighting, kidnapping, robbery, extortion, sexual contact, sexual assault, simple threats, and criminal threats. So there were 70 reports of violence reported in 2021-2022 for the middle school. Of them, 61 of them were simple threats. For example, if I threatened to hurt somebody after school on the playground or something like that, and I report to my administrator that somebody, this person wants to hurt me, and I actually really feel concerned about that, that is a simple threat. So what I am very happy about is that we take all threats very seriously so that everybody does feel safe. So simple threats. 1 was a criminal threat and 8 were fights. So of those. The other thing that is important, so we kept looking at it too because we felt that that seemed to be a lot. Something to note is that each report is an individual student. So there could be one incident that might include 5 students or 8 students, and that's 8 separate reports for maybe one incident. So that's also something to bear in mind. The data that they were using to rank also is per 100 students, and we're a very small school, so of course that number is going to be skewed as well. But we met as a team to review the information as well because even simple threats are alarming to us. And although it's data from 2 years ago, we met as a team to review that information, including not only past incidences but our current list. And we actually found that so some of the incidences were actually reported incorrectly as well. So for example, I saw that something that was reported as a simple threat was actually a substance and wasn't recorded in the right category. So there we reviewed what actually goes into the different categories as well, so the number actually is far less. So we found a number of errors in our reporting as well. And I'm not to minimize threats or violence or anything like that. We are still making significant changes because any kind of threat is harmful enough. So we don't want any actions such as those. So we've been putting things in place for the safety of all students, including recently a youth safety specialist at the middle school. We are piloting this year responsive advisory, which I believe Equity and Excellence will hopefully report out. Some of the staff came onto a meeting back in December to report some really positive culture and climate that is happening with our responsive advisory. We all provide ongoing training on restorative practices, and we hired a student assistance counselor as well. So again, not to minimize the issues, but it was good that it kind of came up because we looked into our reporting issues that came up as a problem as well. The second thing that I wanted to report on was on Wednesday, January 10th, we had a bomb threat that came into the high school from an anonymous cyber source. So as I reported out in some recent communication, first I want to thank our high school principal, Michael Lassiter, for following safety procedures, which involves calling 911, calling me, and involving the middle school as both schools are attached. So I appreciate Mr. Lassiter's commitment to our protocol. From there, we were directed to evacuate the buildings to our reunification sites. We followed our standard plan for evacuation, which is what we use as our plan. And once everyone is evacuated and the emergency command post is established, Office of Emergency Management, Highland Park Police Department, Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office take over the investigation from there. I want to thank Mr. Lassiter, Ms. Brady, and our Director of Facilities, John Flanagan, our students and our staff, the Highland Park Police Department, EMT that was on site from both Highland Park and Milltown, K-9 units from local and across the county that came and went into swift action to ensure the safety of everyone in our buildings. Those things take time when you have to comb. Our buildings are big and there are a lot of nooks and crannies. So for K-9 units to go in to make some swift action, they had to call for some backup units because we wanted to get this done in a timely fashion to make sure everyone was safe. So I really thank everybody for coming together and doing swift action to make sure that first and foremost our priority is the student safety. So when I get on scene, I need to know that every student is safe and accounted for before we do anything else. So I'm not going to share anything else about the details for 2 reasons. One is that it's still an active investigation, and I'm not privy to the information, nor am I allowed to share information. And the other that I don't share is anything that has to do with our internal safety plan. So there's a reason why that plan is an internal document. That would be like the Department of Defense giving out the United States defense mechanism on how we tighten our borders. Same thing with school safety. However, I can share that we had a post-incident briefing to discuss the strengths and weaknesses of our plan. The meeting was attended by our safety committee members that included Office of Emergency Management and emergency responders. First and foremost, in any emergency, the safety and security of all students and staff is the #1 priority, followed by, that goes through each of the buildings. Once we know everyone is safe, we can then move on to the safety of the buildings and resource allocation. For this incident, I'm happy to report that resource allocation and collaboration went smoothly. Our students and staff followed the standard practice evacuation protocol, and everyone performed their duties and responsibilities without issue. Dismissal ran well, as it required the district to account for each student leaving the reunification site. There is so much that happens behind the scenes, and in light of a few areas that we could work on, it went remarkably well. So just a couple of notes that I wanted to share with the community. 1, our reunification sites were not really ready for use for us. We had practice, I thank the high school for practicing last year, but that was a known practiced procedure. This was an emergency situation, so our reunification sites weren't really fully to accommodate us. Which makes sense because it was an emergency, and that happened. So we'll continue working on the people that own those sites to make sure that we can tighten things up in the future. So I thank the members of the church, as well as the owner of the center school for running into swift action to try to get us heat turned on, toilet paper, and things as we needed it in real time. There was some gridlock on the roads, which delayed buses from arriving at the reunification sites and slowed down dismissal. So we had talked about ways that there's not much we can do to prevent gridlock, other than continuing to communicate with the transportation coordinators to say, hey, don't go down 4th, go down another road or something like that. Our staff will be having conversations with students during advisory to provide a time dedicated to letting them speak on the topic and share thoughts as well. During these times, we're trying to minimize crowds at our sites, so the language we used, although confusing, we felt helped to maintain crowd control. So the Office of Emergency Management is very specific in their communication on what we put out. So during the immediate command post, communication happens through Office of Emergency Management, and then I put out what I'm told to put out. And part of it is, although confusing, helps to maintain crowd control. Social media. So there was a member of the emergency response team that was behind the scenes monitoring social media as well. Caregivers and students, if you're out there and listening, you should not, under any circumstance, share the location of where you are or where your children are in an emergency situation. We don't know what was going on, and by sharing your location or the location of your children doesn't help the situation, because now you're saying, red light, guess what? Here they are. If you want to come get them, we know where they are. That's why our reunification sites are close to our vest and part of our plan that is not public. So in an emergency situation, I strongly suggest and urge you to not share that information. Let's see, a couple more things, and then I'm just going to pass the mic over real quick. I know that everyone is worried about their children. Trust me, I was worried too. But you need to trust that we practice these drills extensively all year, and that their safety is our #1 concern and priority. Trust that your children are in good hands. We take very, very good care of them. I'm going to pass the mic over to Dr. Beatty, who was in the safety committee debrief, and just to see if you wanted to add anything that I may have missed.
I might just reiterate a couple things. I think one is that all of the students and all of the staff were evacuated from both schools within 20 minutes at a safe site. And I just want to really commend students, staff, administration on the priority to get kids safe. I know in the community there were a lot of different things about questioning, improving things. One was communication, that the superintendent just talked about. I think it's really important for the public and parents to know that while there must be a ton of anxiety and fear and whatnot, that the superintendent's actually very limited in what they can communicate, because it has to go through the county prosecutor's office. And that's probably not something that people generally know. And so anything has to get approved, and so it's actually slows the process down, and it's very limited in an active incident. So I think that's just something to kind of reiterate and tell people about, because kind of so know the public knows that. And I think the last piece is to be really careful about, and the police are really clear about this, being really careful about where you're sharing information if you've been contacted by your child. And sharing that publicly if it's like an active shooter situation, or in this case, a potential bomb threat and someone is still trying to harm people, means that whoever is trying to do it also has access to some of that information. And so being really careful about where that is. It's one thing to share it with other parent friends, and another thing to put that on social media that is publicly accessible. And so just being really careful if you see another parent share it, or if you're a moderator on one of these forums, to actually limit that information, just to keep our kids safe, our students safe, and the staff and the administration safe as well. So I would just reiterate that. But I just, there was a lot of communication throughout that incident from Office of Emergency Management, the police, and school staff, and being in that community and hearing them talk and rethink, like what can do better, what needs to be in place. I was just really impressed with how they're working together and how they're questioning and trying to improve on the process that you hope you don't have to go through, but when you do, you want it to run as smoothly as possible.
Thank you. All right, moving on to a more lighthearted topic of my presentation tonight is I would like to turn the mic over. So one second, Angela, could you just do me a favor? I think the projector turned off. Mr. Lassiter, I'm going to pop you on the big screen.
No problem.
So Mr. Lassiter is home with us right now, so I'm going to pass the mic over to him when he gets up on the screen so he can do the student spotlight. And I'll move up to the podium while you're speaking, Mr. Lassiter. I feel like it's a little bit more formal to give the certificate of achievement.
So sorry I could not be there this evening, but I do want to definitely celebrate these two students. When I sent out to the staff nominations to be made for our student spotlight, I asked them to please send me emails about students who went above and beyond the regular actions of our students. We celebrate our students all the time with golden owls, and I'm ready to hand out a whole bunch of those, but both of these students are way more than just golden owls. And I'm actually kind of really excited to celebrate our art and music program because that's who responded to the call to nominate these students. So first up, I received an email from Mrs. Sarah Grunstein regarding Juliana Cordero Hicks. And I hope she's there this evening because Ms. Grunstein has some wonderful words to share about her. She's been instrumental in the art room as of late, in addition to working hard on her projects and having great enthusiasm for learning and applying new ceramic techniques. She has started to increasingly volunteer to enhance the studio space. Without my asking, this is Ms. Grunstein saying this, she identified jobs in the room that would be useful and sets about doing it. Whether it was cutting additional clean squares of canvas for our work mats, no easy feat, as the canvas is both challenging and tedious to cut, or inventorying and tidying up our glazing station, Juliana eagerly tackles the task. Most recently, she sets about organizing the large storage room. Again, none of this has been asked of her. She's the rare and wonderful type of person who sees how she can make something better, and then rolls up her sleeves and does just that. Equally noteworthy is how humble she is. So I hope she is there, because when Ms. Grunstein went to thank her in front of the class, Juliana almost left the room. Ms. Grunstein says she definitely deserves this public recognition here from our board for the kind of student that goes above and beyond. Congratulations, Juliana, for
Mom?
That's a great picture. Okay, next up, I received an email from Ms. Nicole Hodge, who wanted to celebrate Eliza Boylan. Eliza is an example of a student who truly goes above and beyond to improve both the morale of the choir and the duties involved in running a high school choral program. Since arriving at HBHS, Eliza has always been one to offer extra help to Ms. Hodge's duties, to help organize the music, file the paperwork, and even help recruit students to clean and sanitize our vocal space to assist in reducing illnesses and transferring of droplets and germs in the choir room space. This year, for junior year, Eliza was elected by the student body of the choir, which is composed of approximately 40 student peers, to the Office of Administration and Logistics. This role includes the following duties: taking attendance for concert performances, run out performances in any school events, organizing and recruiting tri-am ushers, concert program distribution and publicity for the events within the school, fundraising in the lead organization with other board members that include monthly one-on-one meetings, making photocopies, scanning documents in conjunction with the librarian, taking photos at the choir events, collecting emails, creating spreadsheets of alumni numbers, planning large group photos, and helping to organize recruiting events, choir slideshows, and display of senior photos for banquets or parties for the end of the year. Additionally, I wanted to shout out Eliza myself. She always showed tremendous school spirit whenever we have spirit weeks. She's one of those students that leads the charge. She shares this spirit each and every day as well, leading the morning announcement team and serving as our school DJ. And she really play the morning song that sets the tone for the day. If there's any student who deserves recognition, it is Eliza, and I am proud and so grateful that she is an integral part of our school, not only in choir, but each and every day. Congratulations, Eliza.
Thank you, Mrs.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing to both those students. One of my goals when I retired was actually to help recruit teachers. If I didn't describe an art teacher in the making, a music teacher in the making, I'm not sure I could do any better. Both those ladies might want to consider that because you're well on your way.
Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Lassiter. I will have pictures ready for you tomorrow that you can post as needed if it's appropriate. That concludes my report. And my microphone is MIA, so well, it's getting a new battery, I hope. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our auditor's presentation. Please welcome Laura Acko and Jonathan Weiss.
Good evening, everyone. As always, it's our pleasure to come and talk to the board about the results of the audit for the fiscal year we last audited, which ended June 30th, 2023. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Laura Atwell for coming tonight and assisting with the presentation and assisting me this afternoon with getting the i's dotted and the t's crossed. When going over the financial highlights, I find it best to start with revenues and expenditures, which is where we start with our handouts tonight. From 10,000 feet up, revenues increased over the prior year by a little under $1.6 million. We see that the increase in the general local tax levy is at its 2% cap. A little bit more than that for a debt service. From district to district to district, big districts, small districts, and things of that nature, there are some trends that I've been seeing week in and week out. And among those trends is interest on bank accounts going up. And I'm happy to say interest on bank accounts have gone up for Highland Park as they've gone up for everybody else. And that's included in the interest and miscellaneous category that we see. Another thing that brings a smile to my face and shows that things are getting back to normal is the increase in student activities. That means that the kids are, again, participating in co-curricular activities that are like trips and things of that nature, things that you would have to go away for, things that were essentially shut down during COVID. And it's nice to see things getting back to normal, or as close to normal as we can get it. Another big thing that happened this year is leases. Primarily, the district entered a Chromebook lease. And when that happened, you have to bring in the total amount of the lease and also show it as an outlay. So it comes in and comes out, and then every year when the district makes the lease payment, it's kind of handled like debt service, like a principal and interest payment. Moving down to the state aid categories, got a little bit of a dip in state aid for general fund. And we had a couple things happen here. The district received like a one-off called the Maintenance of Equity Aid in the 21-22 school fiscal year. That was kind of a one-and-done revenue stream. The loss of that was offset by increases in special education aid and extraordinary special education cost aid. So the net effect of the loss was only $163,000. Moving down to the federal portion, this district, along with several other districts in New Jersey, realized a lot of their FEMA claims for COVID-related expenses in the current year. There was a lag, and just about everybody had a lag in putting the claim in versus getting the claim. The increase in general revenues is primarily the result of getting FEMA money in. That was kind of on the back burner and eventually made its way in. For special revenue fund, one thing to highlight is that there's a grant funding stream that's eventually going to be going away, and those are the ESSER grants that are related to COVID. So there was a first round of 3 ESSER grants that matured this past September. Then there was a second round of 5 ESSER grants that are going to be gone in this coming year, September. So those numbers for both this year and last year are a bit inflated by those amounts. Any questions, comments, concerns before I move down to expenses? Okay.
Would you mind just explain?
Sure.
Would you mind just explaining the Chromebook lease a little bit further, because that's a $600,000 difference? I'm just curious. I didn't understand your explanation.
The explanation is, when the district enters a lease, the entire amount of the lease comes on as a quote-unquote revenue the whole time. The whole thing comes on. In addition, the related expense also gets included in capital outlay. So it goes on, but it's offset entirely by an expense. And then what happens is, as the district makes the payments, their annual payments for the Chromebook lease, it's recorded as principal and interest on debt in the general fund. So essentially, we're showing in a sense the money coming in, the Chromebooks coming in, and also the expense, the money going out. Then the actual payment of the expense occurs when we pay the annual installments. I'm hoping that clears that up. Any other questions, comments before we move on to expenditures? Okay. Moving on to expenditures from 10,000 feet up. Total operating expenses increased by a little over 5.5%. The ones moving up are things such as students and instruction-related services, in this particular instance, extraordinary special education costs where things requiring one-on-one specialized services were up. Pupil transportation were up, mostly the ESC routes, plus the district took on another route with South Bergen Joint Commission this past year. Employee benefits went up by about 14%. What happened in the 21-22 fiscal year was everybody involved in New Jersey State Health Benefits got a one month quote unquote holiday, where the month of February didn't have to be paid. So 11 months were paid in 21-22. We were back to 12 full months in 22-23, and that explains the difference there. As far as things like capital outlay, those will vary based on what your needs are from year to year to year. And then this past year, major projects included camera and speaker installations, architect fees for planned roof replacements, and some upgrades for the trailer classroom, and some upgrades and connections for the trailer classrooms that are being brought online. Any questions, comments, before we move on to some of our charts? Okay. Down the line. I'm looking at our revenue charts. And the first thing I look at is our pie chart. And if we look at it, most of it is green, telling us that our revenue stream primarily is going to be the real estate tax levy. The blue wedge represents our state aid. The red wedge are federal sources. And the yellow wedge is our other miscellaneous items, such as receiving tuition, built facilities rental, the interest that we talked about earlier, things of that nature. What we wanted to take a look at on the line chart to the right is the consistency of the tax rate. And as we can see, from 2022 to 2023, everybody went down, and that was due to a county order revaluation of real property. Going down to our bar graphs, we can see that our tax levy has been relatively steady, rising a bit over the last couple of years. Our state sources are up. The 2022 amount represents the maintenance of equity aid that I mentioned earlier. That was kind of a one-off. As we can see, we had a dip, but not as much of a dip had we not received more in special education aid and extraordinary special education aid expenses. We talked earlier about the federal revenue streams, primarily the COVID grants for the ESSER grants and the ARP ESSER grants. And the two larger where we see it trending up in 2021, 2022, and 2023 represents the effect of those grants. As we mentioned earlier, tuition, interest, and other. We had spikes in interest on bank accounts, facility rentals, and things of that nature. Any questions, comments, before I move on to some of the expense highlights?
Can you explain again the 10-year property tax rate one? Why is that huge drop there? Is that based on revaluation?
That's based entirely on the revaluation.
It in fact doesn't indicate change in the money that came in, just
No.
the way it's assessed.
What it essentially does is that it reshuffles the debt based on what the actual values of the real property are, gets them more in line with what the resale value is on these guys. For many years, the municipality was way behind in assessed values. I believe the rate was somewhere around 40% of actual realized cash value on the real property. And once the revaluation was done, it brought it much more in. It brought the assessed values much more into what the actual market value would be on these properties.
I have a quick question for the federal sources. You indicated maybe that's going to go down in the future, but for the tuition interest and offers, do you anticipate that to continue to get the bump that we saw from this last year?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? It was a little quiet.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, much better. Thank you.
Okay, let me position better. So the tuition, when we saw that bump, there was quite a bit more coming in last year. Do you anticipate that to continue to increase and be at that level?
Tuition is going to be contingent on who's being sent to the district. And that can vary from year to year. My hope is that interest on bank account stays where it is, at least for the time being. And all indications appear to be that it will be that way.
If you don't mind me chiming in for a second,
Please
I'm
do.
gonna yell as loud as I can,
Well,
but
but we have people at home, so if you can go on the mic, sorry.
just to comment on it also to clarify, in the yellow grid, where you do see that larger spike for the current year, that does include that lease that we were speaking about before, where we're kind of showing it coming in, but we're also showing it coming in and out for accounting purposes. But for liability purposes, you'll see that piece kind of slowly coming out each year over the course of the actual lease, if that helps. But we do expect that interest rates, we're crossing our fingers because we're all seeing the benefits, where it's not just the schools, all personal pockets are seeing the benefits of the interest increases. So hopefully that continues for at least a few more years.
That's very helpful.
Okay, any other questions, comments from on to expenditures? All right. Moving on to our expenditure pie chart. My expectation for my pie chart, no matter where I go to, no matter how big or small the district is I expect this pie chart to be full of these colors primarily: green, blue, and purple. Green representing regular instruction expenses. Blues being either tuition or student and instruction related services, and purple, employee benefits for our employees. As we can see here, my expectations have been met. About 2/3 to 3/4 of the pie is full of these items. So going down to our bar charts, we look at them, not only do I want to stack them up in our pie chart, I also want to stack them up and compare over the last 10 years. And we can see that instruction and other instruction have held steady over the last few years. Tuition, but much like we said about tuition coming in, it also applies to tuition going out. It depends on who lives in the district and what their needs are and whether or not the district may, by no choice but snow, have to send a student out of district. Sending tuition is a reflection on that. Student and instruction related services. Those are our guidance counselors, our nurses, our librarians, our extraordinary special education and related services for our therapists and things of that nature. Our administrative expenses, those are our principals, our student business officer, superintendent. Plan operations and maintenance, our facilities and grounds. Pupil transportation we touched on earlier. And we can see the effect of COVID towards the latter part of 2020 and 2021 and getting back to normal. Getting back to normal is expensive, as reflected in 22 and 23. And we talked about employee benefits earlier and how 2022 has that little dip right in the middle there for the 1-month holiday for health benefits. Any questions, comments from the fund balance?
Like
Yes.
I said, what's other instruction? Regular instruction is classroom?
Other instruction is going to be your special education instructional costs. It's also going to be things like co-curricular activities, your sports, your student activities, things of that nature. Anything else before we talk surplus? Okay. I'm going to move ahead to this part of our presentation.
Actually, I have a quick question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I was just examining it. So I'm struck by the looks like the cost, the expenses, the money spent on regular instruction has stayed really consistent for 9 years now. And I don't know if these bars are adjusted for inflation, but you would think just because money is worth less, these bars would have gone up. So what it suggests to me is that we're not increasing investment in regular instruction, and instead that investment is going into other instruction, student instruction-related services. And that may be for reasons, but is that the case, would you say?
All we can do with it, as far as making interpretations, that's probably best left to district administration and things of that nature. As far as what the actual regular instruction costs are, these are just the actual regular instruction costs as stated on the C1 of our general fund expenditures. In other words, the district designs a budget every year based on what those costs are going to be. And in some instances, regular instruction can be kept flat. In other instances, you could have situations where you have special education and special needs, and when you get to those categories in-house, those can be expensive.
Right. How about student and instruction related services? Is that, that sort of, assistance, special needs, that sort of thing? Or?
That's going to be, as we mentioned earlier in our presentation, the big spike here, and I'm looking from 22 to 23, those are extraordinary special education costs. So these are students who need like one-on-one aids and one-on-one physical therapists and things of that nature, and that stuff can get pretty expensive.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Anytime.
And just I'm going to follow up on that. Regular instruction predominantly is salaries. It's teacher salaries, right? That make up
Right.
instruction.
As with every school district, most of the expenses are going to be salary. There are going to be many other costs such as overhead and things of that nature. But by and large, no matter what school district we go to, salaries are going to be, except for maybe I've got one district coming up who sends their 9 to 12 kids out on a tuition basis to another high school. In those instances, okay, you're going to have bigger tuition costs, but by and large, salaries are going to be your largest expense. Okay, anything else before we have a look at surplus? Okay, we're going to move on to this part of our presentation. And for starting from the top, our restricted reserves, and they're restricted for a reason because we can only use them for specific things. Our capital, emergency, and maintenance reserve all saw increases this year compared to last year. Unemployment compensation went up a little bit. The district is self-insured for unemployment, which means that when a bill comes in, the state will send that bill straight over to the district, and the district will pay from that unemployment trust fund. Our committed or encumbered amounts, those are for the items we ordered that did not come in yet. We can't expense it until we physically get it. So these are for orders that are made but not yet received. We have our assigned fund balance. Those are amounts set aside to offset tax increases. As we can see, they average about $2 million over the last 2 years. And our unassigned fund balance. And as we can see, unassigned fund balance went down, and that's by design. For the last 2 fiscal years, prior to 22-23, the state allowed districts to take 4% of their operating expenditures and keep that as unrestricted surplus. Now, the hard fast rule in the state of New Jersey is you can't have too much money. And having too much money in this instance means that rather than the 4% that you've been enjoying for 2020 and 2021-22, that's been back down to 2%. And this reduction in unrestricted free surplus reflects that. Any questions, comments before we get into some of our graphs and charts? Okay. Moving on, we're going to look at our pie chart for our general fund balance. And as the pie wedges go from blue to green, the money from green to blue, I should say, the money gets a bit less restricted. The big dark green wedge represents your capital reserve, and that's money set aside. Those are funds set aside for projects approved in your long-range facility plan. The emergency reserve are funds set aside, as the name indicates, for emergencies. We have about $450,000 in maintenance reserve for projects approved in your comprehensive maintenance plan. Your committed fund balance, those are your encumbrances. Your assigned fund balance, which is the amount you anticipated in your 2023-2024 budget. So when the calendar goes from June 30th, 2023 to July 1st, 2023, that money is gone, gone in the sense that it's been anticipated as a revenue stream. And finally, the general fund unassigned fund balance of $1,331,448, essentially what's left after all restrictions have been accounted for. As we look at some of our bar graphs right below, we can see the bump in encumbrances that we spoke of earlier, and a lot of those encumbrances are also for the things that were ordered for the trailer. I'm thinking specifically of the cabling project and the hookups to the water sewer. Our assigned fund balance, we can see for the past couple of years, that's trended above $2 million. That's the amount set aside as a budget revenue stream. And our unrestricted, as we talked about earlier, we saw a decrease, which applied to pretty much all New Jersey school districts, with operating expenditures being counted only 2% rather than 4%, which all districts enjoyed for the last couple of fiscal years. Unfortunately, the party's over on that one. Moving on to some of our restricted reserves. We can see that the district's done an effective job in banking money for capital reserve. 21, we saw an increase. 22, we saw an increase. 23, we saw an increase. But one thing I wanted to remind the board of is that of that a little over $3 million, $1,326,129 of that has already been budgeted in the 23-24 budget for your various capital needs. And a similar thing can be said of maintenance reserve and emergency reserve. While we did have increases at the end of the year, amounts budgeted for emergency reserve were $200,000 and $186,592 for maintenance reserve. So it's there, and you're using it to fund applicable expenses in your related planning documents for your capital needs and your maintenance needs. Any questions, comments, concerns on fund balance before we move forward? Yes.
Very quickly, this is not on that topic, correct something I said earlier. I'm sorry. I want to quickly correct something I said earlier, and it's for the benefit of the people who are watching as well. I was taking a closer look at this graphs for expenditures. I think I was a little bit, I made a mistake because the Y axes are different. So, for instance, the vertical axis of regular instruction goes from $1 to $9 million. And the axis for instance, other instruction goes from 1 to 6. So while regular instruction looks like it's flat, it's because it's zoomed out a lot more. If you look at it, other instruction looks like it's going more, it's because it's zooming in. So in fact, if you look at the difference between 2014 and 2023 in regular instruction, it looks like about $1 million increase over that time, just eyeballing it. And other instruction, it may be $1.5 million, which is a difference, but one is not stayed flat while the other one is shot up. So I just want to correct that.
Okay.
My interpretation of the graph. Thank you very much.
Any questions, comments, concerns on surplus or anything else in the presentation so far? Okay, a word or two about the audit. What we do is, we typically come in. We came in last autumn. We look at everything from payroll registers to expenditure registers, to financial reports, to population numbers, to transportation stuff, to food service. You name it, we pretty much look at it. The results of the audit this past year, we have 3 items requiring, that were recommendations that require corrective action. One is the staffing of the business office. Another is ensuring that the board secretaries and treasurers' reports are in agreement, particularly on following up on outstanding items. And the final thing is following up on old point-of-sale accounts receivable balances that have been on the district's books. With that, I'll be happy to take any more questions, comments, concerns. Okay. Both mine and Laura's contact information has been available to everybody. Thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. May I say something? I just want to thank you and your staff for coming in, especially because I was new, and I'd also like to thank the business office staff, the student services staff, and the superintendent's office for your cooperation in getting this audit completed. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going
going to move on to board committee reports. I will begin with curriculum and instruction. On the agenda tonight for curriculum instruction, we have the approval of the field trips that are attached. We have approval of kids, A through H. We have approval of home instruction for 6 students. The approval of some university graduates and students for teaching internships and junior practicum or observation that are coming to us from Rutgers, I believe. Yes. Some of them are coming to work in our social emotional learning lab, so we're excited about that. The number 5 is the approval of curriculum writing. It's just to correct some errors or revise some things that need to be revised in the chemistry curriculum for semester 2. And number 6 is for a sidebar, which would, I'll just read it out as it is. I move that the Board of Education accept recommendation of the superintendent to approve the sidebar agreement between Highland Park Board of Education and Highland Park Education Association, adding 2 new positions, the International Public Middle School and Buddy Bowl at the high school, to the Schedule B agreement for the 2024-2025 school year as per attached. And those were discussed in previous meetings and committee reports from, I think, both finance facilities and curriculum instruction. Okay, so now curriculum instruction met on January 11th. It was myself, Dr. Suska, Ms. Rodriguez, Ms. Asamoah, Ms. Voorhees, and Dr. Pixley. First thing we did was we discussed high school counseling. So Ms. Asamoah attended our curriculum meeting to provide an overview about how counseling is structured at the high school and to discuss current and future changes made to the department under her leadership. As a reminder, she did undertake the guidance department this year, so this is the first year that guidance has its own administrator centrally. Ms. Asamoah's overall goal for the department is more cohesiveness of guidance counseling from school to school. One of the changes that were made at the high school this year is a new system to keep track of students that are visiting their counselors so that more outreach can be made to students that are not seeking support. Additionally, Ms. Asamoah has also been working with each school on transitions from school to school. She has met with middle school administration to discuss the transition from 8th grade to high school and is exploring more opportunities for students to be exposed to some of the vocational programs in our county, starting in 7th grade. She is also looking at opportunities for juniors to be exposed earlier to the college application process, potentially through a summer boot camp. Ms. Rodriguez also mentioned that the ELA department might be starting their college essays for juniors this spring, as opposed to in their senior years, they have more time to work on their essays and get some feedback. At the high school, caseloads remain assigned by the last initial, so counselors have students in grades 9 through 12 on their caseloads. Ms. Asamoah may consider other methods of organizations, such as caseloads assigned per grade or a designated college counselor. Ms. Asamoah also gave some examples of how high school counseling supports students throughout the year. For example, in August, they schedule classes and have orientation. In September, there's post-secondary presentations for juniors and seniors, and financial aid night. In November, they do a check-in and they set some goals with 9th graders. In January, there's an academic excellence assembly that brings back former students to meet with the seniors, so students that are currently in college to come back, kind of tell kids about their experience. And then in March, there's an AP night. There are more than this. This is just an example of kind of how things are structured throughout the year. The guidance department will pursue a designation as an American School Counselors Association ramp school, which is technically recognized ASCA model program, and will use their evaluation metrics in order to assess how the program is developing. We also discussed our efforts in student support. We have our Irving STEAM program, had 38 students participating, and yoga and art was included with that. At Bartle, Ms. Stodolsky and Ms. Rodriguez attended a meeting with Imagine Learning, which would provide Orton Gillingham trainers and certified teachers 3 times a week for 1-hour virtual sessions with ratios of 2 students to 1 teacher. These virtual sessions may expand
access to some families who are unable to have their children stay after school. If pursued, this addition would be to the high impact tutoring support plan that we currently have in place, and perhaps run March through May. Ms. Rodriguez will explore arranging intervention for after-school students who also qualify, so they can perhaps get the tutoring while they're already in after school. But again, this is not confirmed, this is just something that's being explored. In high school, there is now going to be an after-school intervention for ESL students. And in middle school, we have our new WISE Connection program, which is to support chronically absent students and chronically tardy students. And there were new policies. That concludes my report. Are there any questions? Okay, we will move on to equity and excellence.
Thank you, Allison. And Equity and Excellence actually does have 2 meetings to report on tonight. I apologize for not getting the December 21st meeting notes into our shared folder earlier, but it is there now. That was a meeting that was held right before the break, and we had maybe 1 or 2 committee members that actually were able to make it. So thank you, Allison, for taking notes on my behalf. I'm going to share out those notes. And that was actually a meeting that I'm really sad that I missed, but it sounds like we had some really exciting program updates from our advisory teachers at the middle school and high school. So our sponsored advisory teachers, Mr. Dyson at the high school and Ms. Giovanetti at the middle school, reported on how their advisory lessons are going so far. Mr. Dyson reported that he is finding that the smaller groups of around 11 to 12 students have been beneficial for promoting interaction between students and staff, establishing rapport, and the advisories are meeting for 30-minute time slots. So the small groups, the shorter times, seems to work really well for promoting more engaged discussion and relationships. Discussions have incorporated personal experiences, current conflicts, past historical events, as well as other sort of organic discussions, in addition to sort of the advisory curriculum script that the teachers follow in the lessons. Groups will be grouping, so that's really nice that the students can kind of grow each other through their time with advisory and build those relationships. Let's see, the high school meetings are very discussion heavy, and they use the restorative circle model as well. At the middle school, similar timing in terms of the 30-minute time slot. The advisory happens at the end of the school day. So Ms. Giovanetti reported that they're very mindful of keeping the meetings fun as well, so that they don't become like a chore for students at the end of the school day. The students in the groups are very diverse, and they're not just kind of like a bunch of friends getting together for advisory. So the teachers have found that helpful for promoting kind of cross-group or different interactions among the students. There are also below student participants and students who are what we now are calling English as new language learners that are also integrated into groups. So that inclusion model is also allowing for cross interaction between students. Let's see. Okay, I talked about the organic discussions as well. Institutions are not strictly sticking to the script. One example of that, the middle school advisory level goes around a discussion about hate speech that arose in one of the lessons, and the students talk about their concerns, raise questions, and that led to a kindness tree project that the designers us. So the teachers are really thinking about ways to allow those kind of discussions to occur and be prepared for those discussions through meetings that the teachers have in between their time with the students to sort of work through strategies and ways to support those kind of discussions in sponsored advisory groups. Teachers are also looking forward to seeing some service learning or community service projects being integrated into their time together based on the kinds of discussions that we can have around current events and issues that matter to them. Mr. Lasser reported that he took a survey of advisory students and faculty based on, I think at that point, the 5 or 6 sessions that they had. And of those findings, he shared that 60% of students participated actively versus just listening during their advisory time. 29% of students responded positively, that is, they feel it's impacting the climate culture in a positive way. 21% were optimistic and excited about advisory. 54% of the students said they wanted to focus more on how they can do better in school, so thinking about the academic piece as well. And a common sentiment shared by the students, unsurprisingly, is that they would prefer to be with their friend group. So the teachers talk about how to balance kind of the students' desires to clearly be with their friends, and also the desire to have a mix of people with students outside of their typical peer group. And I think I covered everything. If I missed anything, Blair and Allison, please chime in. But these are really exciting updates. I think one other piece I do want to mention that Mr. Lassiter talked about was that the future model for high school advisory is to have the juniors and seniors link up to form advisory group supports for 9th and 10th graders, so kind of turnkey to the underclassmen. So a lot of potential for growth there. And that's it. Good coverage, Allison? Something? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So let's move on then to our most recent Equity and Excellence meeting, which was this past Thursday, January 18th. The first item on discussion was not initially on our agenda, but it was around the recent article in the education article, which Dr. Suska went over in her report. I really have nothing else to add to what she's already said based on our notes here. We basically discussed everything that she shared with us in terms of the review of data. Actually, you shared more data that you didn't have at that time. So I'm just going to move right on past that. I will share that we also talked about how the Dr. Suska shared with us that the middle school and high school leadership teams are in the process of reviewing their respective codes of conduct that are the basis for guiding decisions around consequences for student infractions. And they're looking to identify areas where the current code of conduct that we've had for years now may need to better reflect kind of newer trends and discipline issues, particularly kind of post-COVID trends. So they're busy working on making adjustments to the code of codes of conduct based on behaviors that they're seeing and trying to work that in again to the current codes. They anticipate this work will be completed by February, and then the central leadership team will review each discipline code and work to make updates as needed with input from what we hope will be a wider team of stakeholders. In the past, there was a discipline study committee consisting of students, parents, and faculty, including administration, teachers, who worked on sort of revising the codes of conduct in each school. So we're hoping that that's the similar kind of model or approach that will be taken in this process. But we appreciate administration, taking that on right now and really making sure that the code of conduct reflects the current needs and continues to be responsive to the district's goal of fostering, restoration and restorative approaches to our culture and climate. We also talked about, that was in that discussion, so I'm going to move on to the next item, which was on our agenda, and that was our discussion of the RISE programs at both the middle school and high school. So RISE stands for Restorative In-School Experience, and that is a program that is essentially an alternative approach to in-school suspension, or ISS. And the administrators have requested the Equity and Excellence Committee to prepare presentations on the respective RISE programs. So I'm going to share some of the highlights that they discussed with us. But again, first, just establishing the overall goal of RISE is to solve root problems, encourage positive behavior, and discourage students from repeating offensive, harmful actions. And the intent, again, is to try to reduce this kind of cycle of out of school suspensions and very punitive measures or responses to discipline. So RISE does keep students out of their regular classrooms during the time that they're in RISE, whether it's for half a day or one whole day. But the program does provide academic support, behavioral resources, and also reflection time for students. So at the high school, the RISE program is held in the in the middle school. The high school program is held in the Media Center. Instruction and restorative work is provided through effective school solutions, and there are also restorative practices provided on an ongoing basis as needed per student. Staff who are identified to work with RISE are those who have a knack for facilitating pro-social relationships with students, and that help to promote the program's restorative work. So administration is really keen on being sure that the staff working with RISE are really committed to that work of restorative social interaction building with students and are able to have that kind of rapport. Students are provided with work from their teachers as well, and that they access to Google Classroom, they have an opportunity to complete missing work, assignments. There's also a possibility for students to engage in live lessons using Google Meets. Students may also be supervised and engaging in group education experiences and projects and labs, as well as receiving counseling services. And this is all done with administrative approval, of course. And then the structure of the RISE program, that 30 minutes is the time here and there, I'm sorry, whether it's a half a day or a whole day, whatever the duration is, you always have to leave with some sort of a debriefing session with the administrator or their designee. And so the overall expectations is that the students will be in RISE without access to, or with only access to school-issued electronic devices, and they must be engaged in academic, social, and reflective activities. And then in terms of some feedback that was reported on the RISE program from not necessarily the formal data, but some of the administrative feedback from students is that the overall impression is that students like being advised, they like the supportive and therapeutic approach. We talked about the importance of then reintegrating the students into the larger community after spending time in RISE and how that works. And the committee also asked about challenges that staff may have found in the program up to this point. Dr. Suska shared that one of the issues at the high school is ensuring students have grade level work that's appropriate for them when they're in RISE, and it's not too difficult for them to be supported by whatever faculty or staff members at that time. So the activity to kind of match the staff support with the students' academic needs. Another issue that can arise is just having too many students in the room at once, and being able to support them. And then again, tying into the academic piece, but the need for differentiated instruction in that space as well, just to address disparities in different academic levels of students in the room at any given time. Dr. Sussman reported that they're looking at hiring kind of more special education teachers in the middle school, generally speaking, to do more co-teaching in order to teacher-class model. And so hopefully, as we build up that staff support, they will also be available to support the RISE program as well. At the high school level, same structure, in terms of the approach, the restorative approach. The high school level students do also have access to behavioral support from the Tiffin Center and SAC, Student Assistance Counselor, as well as effective school solutions. And at the beginning of the day there, the students do attend a conference with the administrator to discuss kind of the antecedents and actions that have resulted in their RISE participation, their new expectations. The students can work on credit recovery assignments, so they really do have an opportunity to get instruction as well as the therapeutic support. We asked about also the kind of lunch privileges, and students at the high school it is reported that students do participate in lunch and any related privileges, except for open lunch during their time of RISE. And then again, at the end of their session, they can have a brief time with their administrator. It's a lot, so I'm trying to kind of give you the highlights. This led to the committee's discussion around the search for an independent evaluator for RISE. This has been an ongoing conversation in Equity and Excellence, thinking about the importance of ensuring that the district has evaluated data on the RISE program as well as our restorative practices more broadly. So Dr. Siska is in the process of narrowing her search down to maybe 2 persons that she's looking to hire one of those individuals to conduct an independent evaluation. So we'll look forward to hearing that candidate being presented to the board and that decision made. At this point, RISE program data is being collected at both schools, and that data includes the number of restorative conferences and circles that are occurring, of course, the qualitative data, teachers' notes, students' reflections, team center notes, as well as just tracking the discipline data. And each school has a discipline study group already in place that's monthly the data. And the challenge now, Dr. Siska acknowledges really just trying to figure out ways to kind of streamline the data process of law schools, schools, and board programs. So again, this is going to be an ongoing sort of discussion with the equity excellence. So there's a lot out there. You all have the notes, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview. And if there are any questions, as I kind of rush through it, please feel free to ask. The last item we discussed was not much of a discussion, more of a sharing. So Dr. Suska shared the policy and code of conduct around substance use in the schools, and sort of what our policy says regarding outside suspension and discipline responses to substance use. There have been questions raised and concerns raised at the board level, just around how we respond to substance use and how we can better support students, knowing that outside suspension and school suspension may not necessarily address underlying issues. So that policy is in the drive, everyone has access to it, and there are sections that really spell what codes we have to follow according to state regulation in terms of discipline, reporting, notification. We also have to provide if a student is suspected of being under the influence of alcohol or drugs, as identified in the state codes, grounds. We do have to require the medical examination, written report of evaluation to be provided to kind of clearance provided by a physician for a student entering the school. And that clearance to really just verify that the students, that the alcohol or whatever other drugs a student has in their system does not interfere with their ability, physically or mentally, to perform in school. So again, this is all in the code of policy, and we appreciate Dr. Suska just highlighting this for us, and any other concerns that arise around our policy and code of conduct around substance use can certainly be for her further discussion in the meeting. And that's it.
Thank you, Monique. Any questions for equity excellence?
Well, I can't hear. Is there a question? Because I can't hear.
Okay, yeah, so two thoughts, fairly brief. I am on that equity excellence committee. The first thought I had, which I shared with the committee when we met last week, is that violence in our schools is an equity issue. It is also an excellence issue. And so I really appreciate Dr. Suska's report. I think there might be some more questions about it later on in the evening. But I don't want to move past that article quite yet. I just want to dwell on it and acknowledge for people in the audience, virtually and here, that violence in the schools is a really serious issue. And there may be things that aren't quite so gloomy when you look at the data. But it still is a serious issue. And given that the kids who are victims of violence are also kids who are already marginalized in other ways, be they people of color, with sexual orientations, kids speak a different language at home, don't have the same economic resources as anyone else. Those kids are victim first. And so I'm really glad that the Equity and Excellence Committee is going to be looking at this issue, taking this very seriously. The second comment I have is this issue of the evaluation of the RISE program. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I think it's important to make sure that we're implementing programs correctly, we have the right programs in place. To my mind, this recent report on violence in the middle school really sharpens the need for this evaluation. And I certainly welcome all different kinds of data, but what I'm really hoping to see is really data that zeroes in on, is this program working? Especially given that it's been in place, I think, since the prior administration. It's been developed for a while, it's been unveiled in the middle school, and now it's spreading other places. And this is one of our primary programs that we're depending on to reduce violence in schools. We need it to work. I mean, when I heard Dr. Suska talk about this program, my first reaction was, this is a profoundly kind way of working with students who may have behavioral issues. And if it works, it's also very kind to people who are victims, but it has to work. And so I hope that whatever criteria we develop with the evaluator, whatever data data is gathered, whatever analyses are conducted, it focuses on, is this working? Is it reducing violence in schools? Is it protecting kids? Is it keeping kids safe? And that's what I would hope to know.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to finance and facilities.
Okay, we also have a report from our committee meeting, which was on January 6th. My phone feels like it's March. Okay. No, that's never close enough. Okay, so we had a committee meeting on January the 9th. Had Tom McIntosh from our after-school program, Dr. Flanagan from facilities, Dr. Suska, Mr. Rosa, and then board members, Nikki and Ethan and myself. I believe we were all there. So some quick updates from the after-school program. Enrollment continues to grow. Colin reported 272 students. So each time we meet each month, that number has been going up steadily. Mini camps will be starting or have started. We're going on the 22nd. Financials continue to look good. Money is coming in at a rate, and things seem to be continuing to look positive in that direction. And there was some conversation about why that was. Why we were in such a difficult spot in the past. And in fact, it was Ethan who asked the question actually, because Colin gave us a little bit of a backdrop. Little background on what's happened since he started the program. And certainly the rate was raised, it hadn't been raised in many years, and it was raised this year. As well as more of a balancing of salaries, a look at when the number of staff that are there that are appropriate to the number of students. There were times when that wasn't the case. So overall, things are looking good in that direction for many reasons. We talked about expanding care from professional development days or days when schools close. Colin said it would be challenging to do that because so much of the staff at aftercare is also the staff that works in the district during the day. So it would be really hard to, at this point, he's thinking is it would be hard to staff additional, like again, during professional development because we need our staff attending the professional development as well. There was after school at Lehman conference days this year. Colin was going to, but he has already joined a meeting at Irving with preschool parents to talk about that program because the preschool aftercare program is up and running and going well, and parents might want to know about that, so he's meeting with them. They also commented there's a website going up for after school so that parents can see the staff, have their bios, their pictures, and more information about aftercare. So there's a website in construction. John reported for facilities that that when we met that day, installation of 10 vape detectors was taking place. There was going to be 2 in each of 5 bathrooms, 2 in the middle school, 3 in the high school. They were working out the system where the administrator would get a text when the detector would go off, which administrator and how that would work out. So in the process. If things go well, there's certainly potential to expand the vape detectors, but they're basically trying to see how it will go. So it's a step-by-step process. He also reported on the roof repairs, which are on our agenda today, that are ongoing at the high school, I think they're Denise reported on this audit presentation that we heard today, the corrective action plan, which was again reported by our auditors, and that they have already begun steps to do that, as is the search for a supervisor of accounting to do some of the things that are in that corrective action plan, as well as move our business process along. The issue of the shortfall in lunch payments, which is one of the comments in the corrective action plan as well. We are not able to do more than ask parents to pay their lunch money. We had talked about, it seems like a need maybe on the state level to change how well that works. It's sort of like we're getting demerits for having this money owed, but we're not able to collect the money. We don't have any other way to do it. So it's a conversation we've had as to how we can help that on a different level. Bartle Playground, fencing is moving along. They're adding a piece of equipment to make it more ADA compliant. RFP went out for additional architectural services, and when those proposals come in, a committee will review the proposals. We went over health benefits. We now have Brown & Brown as a company who is handling our health benefits for our employees. They are marketing our district to health insurance companies, and we're hoping or anticipating there will be a significant savings once that process is completed. And then we talk about the budget process. And the finance and facilities will be meeting for potentially 3-hour meetings to review the budget for each department and school over the next month or so. And also we discussed the new schedule B clubs that were mentioned in the meetings. And on our agenda, so that's it for our meeting. We have no policies also. On our agenda, there are 22 items. I'll try to summarize them. So we have the bill list for December 16th to December 31st, and from January 1st to January 22nd. We're asked to approve the bill list. We are voting on revised reports of the treasurers of school monies from July 23 through October 23. Also the report of the treasurer for monies as of November 30th, 23. And then there's a number of revised board secretary reports certifying that no budgetary line item has been overextended, and that's for the months of July 23 through October 23, and through November 30th. This one is, we're certifying no major fund or account has been again overextended in violation of the regulations. Insufficient funds are available to meet the district's financial obligations for the remainder of the year. We're going to be voting on approval of some budget transfers, travel and related expense reimbursements. The report that we heard today, we are going to be voting to accept the report and their corrective action plan. There's an additional contractor for professional services, that's Bergen County Special Services School District, and that's for teacher and staff consultation. Then we have a list of other contracts for professional development. And there are just a variety of some of the after-school science programs, STEM night at Bartle, some general consulting that are working with teachers, leadership training, CPR and first aid certification, Inspired Instruction, which is working with our grades 4 and 5, this math lessons with grades 3 to 8, lots of different things on here. I'll skim through it quickly. This is all for our February 16th, and a lot of these are for the February 16th insert instead. Working with Dr. Chu on school refusal and chronic absenteeism, that's with our teen and tween center. An assessment from Dr. Karat about working with immigrants, refugees, and asylum-seeking students. And then another one from Inspired Learning about assessment practices in teaching all learners, that's for Irving. We have approval of a contract for a registered behavioral technician to work with one of our students during the school day. That's going to be paid by the parents' insurance, but we include the person being here. We have bedside instruction for 2 additional students. And then the roof replacements that I talked about, the roof work for Irving and the high school. And we're asking to approve that Mr. Rosa will be the supervisor of the school facilities projects. We're accepting a donation for an exercise bike, treadmill, and Smith machine from the police department to benefit our weight room. We've passed through approval of a non-public technology suite, so we're required to pass to be the mechanism where money is passed to non-public schools. This is for a blue box for the Children's House Montessori. The fence installation, approval of that, and of the additional playground equipment in Bartle. The last one, is me, I'm going to the School Board Association Board Leader Masterclass training, so that needs to be approved as well. So, any questions for finance and facilities? Okay, thank you. Right along.
Personnel and communication.
Droopy mic. Trying to keep I'm going to start with the agenda items because we covered too much on personnel, and then I'll add the notes from our meeting on January 9th. We have an approval of the personnel settlement that we discussed in the executive session. We have the approval of 2 leaves of absence. Approval of 2 retirements, Mr. Sclafani and Ms. Moran. Thank you both for your service. Approval of 3 resignations of advisor titles, Mark LaBianca from the middle school newspaper advisor, John Harrison from middle school family school liaison, however he is moving to high school, and Caitlin Luzuriaga, paraprofessional at Irving. Approval of a new hire, Jaleesa Hassan, supervisor of accounting. Approval of the position we just mentioned, Sean will be moving to the high school. Approval of a transfer of a paraprofessional from the middle school to the high school, Ms. Figueroa. Approval of a list of teachers for additional instruction and for teachers. Approval of extra duty positions for after-school athletics, ticket taker, and some security positions. Approval of the high school after-school ESL enrichment program, Elena Shreva Panagos, high school. Approval of the Title I Social Emotional Learning Art Enrichment Program, Michelle DeMarco at Irving, and Alan Asher at Irving. Approval of salaries funded by the Art Besser grant. We have a reading intervention teacher and a math intervention teacher at Irving and Bartle. Approval of an anticipated nurse chaperone for the Model UN trip to Mexico City. Approval of childcare for school events, family night at Irving, strategic planning night, and family night at Bartle. Approval of a list of professional development presenters and prep hours. Big list on reading strategies, tips for using your Promethean board, a book series on accessible instruction, book series on writing matters, using ChatGPT for your classroom. That's very interesting. Organizing your Google Drive, which we mentioned in committee we would all love to have some help with. Reading strategies, screen for your brain breaks, tips, tricks, and transitions. Number 17, approval of staff for prep hours for the February 16th in-service day. 6 staff members. Approval of a substitute for the Title I Brothers Mentoring Program at middle school. Approval of a substitute for the Title I SIA Bartle Brothers Mentoring Program at Bartle. And then we have a reading for number 20, approval of the Title I Family Math Night staff. Some of the hours were incorrect. Ms. Alsager, not to exceed 6. Daly, not to exceed 6. Silverman, not to exceed 6. DeBrule, Parham, Couch, and Curtin, not to exceed 6 hours. 21, approval of the Title I Family Night staff at Bartle. 22, approval of before and after school staff. We have a new administrative assistant and site assistant at Bartle. And that's it for personnel. But I just wanted to mention some things that came up during communications. There was a request from a parent for paper copies or hybrid communication rather than just digital. So we spoke to Ms. Suska, who explained building secretaries at each building keep a paper list for families who request that for school-related documents, but flyers are not printed out. And said you'd find out if this is something that's updated yearly or if they have to request, by semester or by item. We'll get more details about that. Nikki on the committee shared that the registration process was difficult on paper. So Christina explained that during COVID, registration was moved to Genesis. The process remains completely online now because the paper packets received from families past, didn't always, well, one instance, they didn't always include all of the required forms, which could cause a delay. So if people are able to do it on Genesis, the forms are already marked required, so they can't proceed unless they fill that out. And so currently we have kiosks set up in all the different buildings, so parents can actually go to the school and do it there, and there'd be support personnel on hand. But there is interest in moving that to a centralized location, TBD. And then we still have an outstanding question that we'll discuss in the future, availability of paper for in-school assignments, quizzes, and tests. And then also we discussed the hiring process for the new high school principal. Ms. Sisko also sent out a detailed email about part of that process and how we really like community involvement. There will be an opportunity for some board members to attend. Ultimately, that's about it. Thank you. Any questions?
And policy.
So there are 100 policies out here. We're up for second read. It's Title I, school and family engagement that we just have to break out for each of our schools, since all of our schools are Title I now. Policy committee did not meet. We canceled our meeting, and the policy is kind of, we still need to come back to, is the one on religion in the school. And I believe Dr. Siska tried to pull it up right now, but I couldn't get to it. On the board notes, that policy was attached, as well as our lawyer's response to some questions about that policy. So we're going to discuss the whole thing one more time, policy committee. But the sense is the changes we might want in that policy would not go well legally. So we'll have that conversation one more time, and that policy will come up next month. They're out for free. And that's it for policy.
Any questions for policy? Okay, we move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. We will do a 3-minute limit, 30 minutes typically, right? So we do the first one. And anybody in person, please remember to state your name and residence.
Hey, Rebecca Estelle, 606 Abbott Street. I'll read my comments so that I stay in 3 minutes here. Just wanted to come here and just state in person that I think that ensuring basic safety and our core academic competences need to be our highest priorities. Oh, sure. I can't tell you how many parents in town are hovering somewhere between horrified and considering moving. Not joking. This is actually a conversation that I've had. I'm not going anywhere. I really like my house. I really like my friends. Also, we weren't always like this. I'm confident that we can reverse our decline with appropriate focus on the priorities of core competencies and safety. Without getting into that any further, I just wanted to make one point with a few sub-points about data. So we talked a lot about data this year, first in the context of academic competency, and now in the context of violence. Just a few points on that. Even if you don't think that the data reflects the situation on the ground, it's out there. It impacts the town's tax base, which will ultimately affect the schools as the taxes are used to fund the school system. Also, maybe more importantly, maybe not, this is what parents have to go on. We aren't being provided with alternative conditions of success that might allow us to overlook these indicators. Otherwise, it's just the district telling parents to trust us, it's fine. In short, if there are inaccuracies in the record, the district needs to actively correct them and not just make note of them. Secondly, it's concerning that we have misreported data. The district should look into how and why such errors were made and institute course correction. And the district should also look into whether we've made errors in reporting other items. I remember when this came up in the context of our core academic competencies, I was here with a then civilian, Mr. Schoolman, talking about the data surrounding that. The board should be closely monitoring data being submitted going forward on, certainly on key items to make sure that what we're reporting is accurate. And on this point, I just wanted to add that Highland Park parents have an incredible wealth of talent in the area of collecting, analyzing, and reporting large data sets. The district should be utilizing this immense resource at all points. We are sort of uniquely privy to expertise and should use it, and I know some of the members of the board also have that expertise. But to the extent you can call it the community, I know parents would like nothing more than to use their expertise to help the school system. In closing, I just wanted to thank all the folks who recently joined our board. I know this is a big commitment from you and your families. And please know that your willingness to step up is deeply appreciated. And to those on the board who've been long serving, I appreciate your continued service as well, and your anticipated willingness to pivot as needed to address the issues facing the district.
Thank you. Anybody else in person? Okay, we'll move to virtual. Abby?
Hi, this is Abby Stern-Carnell. I'm on Harbor Street. I have a few different kind of disconnected comments, as I tend to do. So a couple of just minor things. Early on, it was mentioned there was a Pumptonian newsletter that was circulated. As a parent, I definitely never received that, and I think if we're saying publicly that something is available, we need to make sure that it's actually out there. So I would love to see that. I think there are people who have concerns about the menu and would love to get more information. I also heard a little bit, I think, from one of the student speakers about the middle school classes. I forget who mentioned that. And just as a parent, that was really difficult to follow, and I'm just wondering kind of what specifically was, led to this change. Were there issues? Is this to address, too many kids in the hallway? So a couple other things. The principal job posting. I know, Mr. Lassiter will be big shoes to fill, and I saw that job was posted on the website, but it seemed to only have 1 week that it was available for submissions, which, maybe I was misinterpreting that, but it seemed to only be out for 1 week, which to me doesn't seem like a suitable time to solicit, a good range of candidates. It seems like you're going to go through a process to evaluate people, but I would hope that there's a sufficient time to recruit really good candidates for this position. And the other thing I wanted to say, a couple more things that I'll try to put in terms of the audit, it seemed like, overall it seemed like things are going well. That was the impression that was given. I would love to see some analysis or information about what could be improved, not just what's going well, but how can we seek out more funds, either through grants or, find other ways to improve the budget, not just everything that's, going on so far. And lastly, I'm going to bring up, as I tend to, the pre-K program. I would love to hear some updates. It's been a few months that this hasn't been discussed, and hopefully there is a lot going on behind the scenes, but this is not something that should fall by the wayside by any means. I know you have a lot of priorities, but this is incredibly important to continue to find ways to make sure that this is expanded. I know next year is set because of the trailers, but you have to start looking at it now. And I'm sure there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but I'd like to hear kind of in October and November there was discussions of a vote, and that didn't happen for many reasons, but now there hasn't been any updates since then. And lastly, I'd like to say I know that there were some delays on getting the play structure or pavilion areas for the pre-K play area due to the Kushner funds, but I believe those are starting to be distributed, and I'd love to see that go out before the end of the year for this first cohort of pre-K kids. And I don't know what the timeline of that is, but it would be great if that is also something that could be made forward.
Abby, can you wrap it up?
Yep.
And then we'll have another one right after.
Thank you.
Anybody else online? Shamika?
Hi, my name is Shamika King, and I'm at 2 blocks from Highland. I just wanted to speak on making sure that when they school safety and basic academic competencies.
I'm sorry, Shuri, it's a little bit hard to hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Did you get the address when you start over?
No, yeah, you can say that again, please.
Sure. My address is 2 Walter Avenue.
Thank you.
No problem. Time for which I believe it is, and also basic academic competencies. I have a child that is Irving, which I believe, the school is great, but I've heard a lot of different stories that goes on in Marble, and, the child comes out of school, and make sure that we are doing, for the school calendar, we've already used 2 school days for this year, and first day that I'm taking away will be June 19th. And maybe there can be some discussion around using another day to be taken away. Especially because we have federally and state as the first day to take away from Sunday. Not fair, especially when what district they take away from grade or they from the year.
Okay, Shimmy, if you don't mind, I'm just going to recap because it was a little bit hard to hear, but you were concerned about school safety and academics, about things that are occurring from Gargle, and that you wanted definitely for the 2024-2025 school year for June 19th to be not considered as one of the take-back days, correct?
Right, that's the first.
Okay. If you feel like you missed anything, you're more than welcome to email us at the board email address, just so we have your comment on record.
I'm still on.
Okay, sorry, we just had a slight glitch. Give us 1 second.
So Shamika, if you just want to email us anything that we may have missed, so we have it on record.
No, we're good.
Is there anybody else online for comment?
I don't see any.
Okay. Move on to board action items. I would like to move curriculum instruction numbers 1 through 6.
Sarah.
Dr. Beatty?
Yes, but I abstain from number 4.
Ms. Salzman?
Yes.
Dr. Coleman? Dr. Coleman, can you hear me?
Not really.
Can you hear me now?
It's better.
We're voting on curriculum and instruction. What is your vote?
Did you call my name?
I did.
Oh, wow. Okay, now I can hear you. So, yes.
Dr. Pixley?
Yes.
Ms. Bruce?
Yes.
Dr. Smolman?
Yes.
Ms. Stania?
Yes, with the exception of 2.
You're abstaining, but abstaining. Ms. Barden?
Yes, abstaining on 3.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Equity and excellence, finance and facilities.
Okay, I move items 1 through 22.
Second.
Dr. Beatty?
Yes.
Ms. Casalzone?
Yes, I am abstaining on anything with Inspired Instruction, LLC, under 13. But yes to all the rest.
Dr. Coleman. Monique, Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, Monique, she's calling roll call for finance and facilities.
Yes, right now I can hear, yes.
Dr. Pixley. Yes. Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman.
Yes.
Ms. Stanio.
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman.
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes. Okay,
Personnel and communications.
I move items 1 through 22.
Second.
Dr. Beatty.
Yes.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn.
yes.
Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
Dr. Pixley.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman.
Yes.
Ms. Stanio.
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman.
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
Thank you.
And policy and regulations.
I move items 1A, B, C, and D.
Second.
Dr. Beatty.
Yes.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn.
Yes.
Dr. Coleman. Dr. Coleman.
I can hear yes.
Dr. Pixley.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Dr. Schoolman.
Yes.
Ms. Stanio.
Yes.
Ms. Vardaman.
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to board liaison report. Does anybody have something to share on behalf of their organization or borough commission?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
Folks hear me online, and if not, hopefully they can share this in
Can't hear Sarah at all, sorry.
Yeah, can you hear me
I
now?
can't hear Sarah at all.
Think about a microphone.
See that frequency was on.
You're real close.
That one's off. You just gotta turn it on. Just hit the switch.
Did you have this on the switch on, Sarah, on that one?
The microphone's off. The little switch.
Hello, is that better?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. We now know the winning microphone. Yeah, I'm really excited to tell you about the CPAT event coming, and that's the Highland Park Special Education Parent Advisory Group. There's an event February 1st, 5:30 to 6:30. It's free, it's virtual. The topic is awesome. How can we support kids who think differently? With guest speaker Lauren Williams, and she started and founded the program for inclusion and neurodiversity education. We have a flyer for it as well. It's open to all, and I think folks who might be particularly interested in this are parents, caregivers, teens, adults, really anyone kind of interested in the topic. So we really hope to see you all there, and I hope the enthusiasm comes through this microphone, and then we do virtually see you there. Thank you very much. Anybody else have a board liaison report? Okay. We'll move on to the president's report. I would, on behalf of the board, like to thank high school and middle school staff for the evacuation and reunification efforts a week and a half ago. Your hard work and dedication to our students' safety did not go unnoticed. We had our strategic planning meeting last week. We had a very good turnout. I'd say about 40 or more people attended. What we did at that meeting was we really discussed visions for where we want our district to be in 5 years, to examine some common themes, and then at our next meeting we will review those themes and then also set some broad goals for moving forward. All of the information, once it's put together by Patty Reese, our NJSBA representative, will be shared online. On the website, there is a specific strategic plan page where you can access the notes from that meeting. I'm going to move on to old business.
So is this recording? Little business. All right. Sorry, is this better? Okay. So, Dr. Suska, I really do appreciate your report and your work delving into the data. A couple of clarifying questions that may be helpful to other people and certainly helpful to me. So, as I understand it, one of the things you found was that 61 out of the 70 reported incidents were simple threats. And what I want to understand is that was a correct classification, and as I understand it, and finding that doesn't change our total, and so sadly our place on that ranking sheet would be the same. It's just if you look a little closer, you see it sounds terrible. 75 incidents. Oh my goodness, what would that mean? 61 of those are simple threats, which don't change our ranking, but may make us feel a little better about it. Is that what I should take from it?
Well, so I actually, because the data is from a couple of years ago, I don't have access to go back in to actually see if that data was reported accurately. The data that I remarked that was reported was actually this year's data, so like we even reviewed this year's data, and we found that some of the things that were reported as under that category actually weren't. So it was substance abuse or something like that. So that was the first time that the team really unpacked the SSDS report to look at it that closely. So that's something that we're going to be doing moving forward. So not only did we look at it, we did some training on it collectively to all make sure between all the buildings that we're all on the same page with how we are, because we were looking at it going, well, how is it the high school is reporting, whatever the numbers, I'm not going to speculate because I don't remember off the top of my head, but a much lower number, and the middle school much higher. So when we looked at the current year's data, because that's the stuff that I have presently, we were reporting things inaccurately. So I don't want to speculate about the 2 years ago data, but it could very well be that that data was also reported inaccurately. I don't know. So what I know is from when I dive deeper into SSDS that the 70 reports of violence, that was what the categories were. Whether that data was reported accurately or not, I don't know at this point. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I still have questions, but that's okay. So, I mean, it makes sense, and there's still some things that are unclear. So, let's look at the current year's, or the most recent data, which is what you looked at, or are able to look at so far. So, of 70 cases that are reportable, 61 are correctly classified as simple threats.
Well, that's not, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's not current data, that's the data from 2 years ago.
Oh,
I don't have the data reported for this year. What I'm saying is I looked at the current data to see what we're currently reporting to find out, because I was like, oh, 70 is a lot, let me look at it. And then I looked at it, and then I went to the year. So I've been looking at it for a little while, because the past couple of years we had a different assistant principal who really is in charge of managing our SSDS. So that 70 is not our current number. Our current number is much less, but we have a report up till about mid-year, but I don't even have that reported data because some of that was reported inaccurately. So once we fix all of the data, my amazing secretary who helps me to manage all of that reports to the state under my name, I will have an update. But right now I don't have any update on current, other than it's definitely not that high. That's what I will report.
How long do you think it might be before you're able to give us more numbers?
As soon as I can.
A month? 2 months?
As soon as my staff can enter the data correctly, I can pull a report. So I will get on them, but of course, during the day, things happen, and my staff have to be on, to address issues that come up in real time, especially in the middle and high school. So we'll do it as fast as we possibly can.
The only reason I'm pressing, not that I don't respect how busy you are and everyone in the staff is, but I'm grateful for all the work going back to old data from the state, because I know how much concern there is in the community, and the sooner we get new numbers out, the better.
I understand, but I don't want to commit to something publicly because I have not talked to my staff on how long they will need. So out of respect to them, I will go back and ask them about approximately how long they'll need to update the data, make sure it's all right, and then we'll review it as a team to make sure that's accurate, and then I can report out. Once I know how long they'll take, I can report it back to Allison, and she can report it back to the board.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question regarding.
Hi, I just have a follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Monique.
So you tell me that I can't hear you. Okay, so I just want to clarify, because I just got a little bit confused with what was indicated about the numbers. So the 70 incidents that were connected to the 2021-22 data, when we met as Equity and Excellence Committee at that time, you hadn't done any sort of deep dive or look at that data, right? And you did not report out that 61 figure that you reported out is not connected to that data, that's what you're saying.
Correct, and yeah, at the time we had Equity and Excellence, we hadn't had the meeting with my group to unpack that.
Okay, so I guess I misunderstood you earlier. So earlier when you reported that 61 of those incidents were actually not coded correctly, we're not talking about the 70 incidents from 21, 22.
I'm not sure if they were. What I'm saying is that in 21, 22, in which that data was reported by NJ 115 2 years ago, 61 of those 70 under the category of violence were simple threats. I'm not minimizing that by any means, but what I am saying is that I gave some examples of what a simple threat could possibly be, but that doesn't mean that we don't have an issue. It's that when they reported to say it's the most violent, second most violent school, you know, it's just sort of looking at the data to say, again, simple threats are a problem. However, when they just use the word violence, they don't really unpack it to say, are 71 of those fights? Are 71 of those sexual assaults? Right? I think that's a different conversation, obviously. But seeing that when we unpacked this year's data that's currently being entered and we saw mistakes there, that was a red flag to say, are there mistakes last year? Are there mistakes the year before? And that's where we need to really look at that. But for right now, I'm really kind of focusing on this year's data, just so that I make sure that we publish that correctly and accurately. So that's like my main goal right now. From there, you know, I'm not sure what the state would allow me to say, oops, we messed up a year or two ago, can we adjust that? I heard there was a comment about, you know, sort of fixing that publicly. I can certainly contact 1015 and tell them to, I mean, the number that they're reporting is correct, right? But I can say, here's, do like a follow-up report, here's what we're finding with this. You know, I have no problem reaching out to the writer of that article or something like that, but you know, I want to make sure, first and foremost, that we're taking our current data, looking at it and reporting that, because this when we saw the article, it was alarming, and so we were unpacking it. So I know it's kind of difficult to understand, but we, right now my focus is on our current data, which I don't have to report yet until we make sure we update that accurately. But that was data from 2 years ago.
And just a
I
helpful,
just want to make sure I had it right.
Yeah.
just a helpful comment there too. If we were to go back, what would be good to see is from other districts, their distribution of those threats and what you might see, maybe they have less simple and more, you know, so that one is interpreted from.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. I don't have access, so it falls under an SSDS report that is in the state from the state's lovely website called New Jersey Homeroom, where we enter all of our data. I can only go in and log in through my login that gives me access to Highland Park. So I can't go into neighboring districts and find out of their violence categories how many are each, you know, each or anything like that. So I really am only privy to the data from Highland Park. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to follow up. Thank you for the debrief on the debrief of the evacuation. You don't, like, I don't want specifics, but some kids were taking phones or like had their phones and were using them, some didn't. Some kids took backpacks, some didn't. Were you guys able to iron out the procedures so that there was like one cohesive message about things that need to happen?
Yes, we were.
Can I say one more thing about the data? I just want to make sure. So when they say 70 reported, like, it's not incidents actually, right? It's actually 70 reports, because you could have 8 reports on one incident.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that's something too that would be really good for both the public and for ourselves to understand is 70 reports might mean 7 people witnessed something that was one incident between 2 kids or something like that.
Well, it's not that they would
Right?
witness it. It would be that like maybe 10 kids were involved in the simple threat, or 10 kids were involved in the fight or something like that. So it's the number of students involved, not that they witness it, but that they're involved in whatever it is. So if I'm going and I make a threat to the 10, 15 people here in this room, right? Now that's 15.
Right. But I think that
Threats.
that's also important to understand when we see 70, we think 70 incidents.
Correct.
But
That's not it.
it could be deceptive, it could be 70, but it could be.
Right, and so that's important to unpack too.
Important for, yeah.
Any new business?
Oh yeah, I wanted to add to old business.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I wasn't here for the beginning of the report, the student report, because I can remember covering after me. But I did want to add that the peer-to-peer group through the Teen Center met last Wednesday. I'm part of that as one of the mentors. It's selected for freshmen as the mentees and seniors as the mentors. And I kind of wanted to tell the board how well it works, that there's different like lessons on time management and stuff like that, where also the seniors can add. And I know, I think Monique, it was you who mentioned that the advisory kind of wanted to move, the advisory groups want to move to a junior and senior mentorship through the younger grades. And I wanted to advocate for that because through the small peer-to-peer group, how well it works, I could see that really working on a larger scale for the school. We're also meeting next Monday. Woo!
Thank you, guys. Any business? Okay, second public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and number 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. Is there anyone here that would like to comment? Seeing none here, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment? Okay, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Angela, thank you so much for the burger.